Tonight on Bridge City News, a second plane carrying Canadian evacuees from the epicenter of the coronavirus arrived at an Air Force base in Trenton, Ontario today. An Alberta man who was found guilty for killing 3 people wants one of his convictions thrown out. And there's an organization which helps kids in crisis called Woods Homes. We speak with the group's program manager from Lethbridge about the hope they offer those who are most vulnerable.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Robbins.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. Lethbridge police have issued a Canada-wide warrant for the arrest of a 29-year-old man in connection with our city's first homicide in 2 years. Mohamed Omar Deblois of Toronto is charged with second-degree murder in connection with the shooting of a 35-year-old man on Thursday night. Police say the two men knew each other. Deblois is also charged with a second-degree murder in connection with an Edmonton homicide on February 8th. He is believed to be armed and dangerous. If you've seen him, do not approach him, but call Crime Stoppers right away at 1-800-222-8477. Officials say no one aboard a second Canadian plane carrying evacuees from Wuhan, China, shown any symptoms of the coronavirus when it landed at CFB Trenton today. Foreign Affairs Minister François-Philippe Champagne says the plane was carrying 130 Canadians and 58 accompanying family members. They're all in quarantine on the base along with the 213 Canadians and family members who arrived last week. Ottawa is also going to provide $2 million to the World Health Organization to help vulnerable countries prepare for a potential coronavirus outbreak. A husband and wife from central Alberta say they're happy and relaxed while being quarantined aboard a cruise ship docked outside of Tokyo. Lolita and Hans Weisner of Red Deer were to disembark last week after a 29-day cruise and planned a tour of Europe when the quarantine was announced. A total of 135 people, including 8 Canadians aboard the ship, have contracted a new form of the coronavirus that has killed over 1,000 people and affected more than 42,000 others, mostly in China. The ship's 3,700 passengers and crew are expected to remain under quarantine until at least February 19th. A spokesperson for the Center for Disease Control in the United States say they now have 13 confirmed cases of the virus in the States. The goal of the agency, she says, is to delay the arrival of separate cases, slowing the spread of the virus.
We do not have widespread transmission here in the United States, and we are currently operating under a strategy of trying to delay the arrival of individual cases and to slow the spread of cases should they occur. We wish that we could tell you exactly what the next few weeks and months will mean. Our current strategy is really a containment one, focused on our borders and focused on intense evaluation around each confirmed case, contact tracing, prompt identification if they develop symptoms, evaluation of the possibility of coronavirus. But with large-scale spread, as is occurring in Hubei province, the strategies often need to change. So we'll be looking ahead at how to prepare for a worsening situation.
Police in the United Kingdom say the 39 people found dead in a shipping container in southeast England last October died of a combination of lack of oxygen and overheating. The victims were Vietnamese and ranged in age from 15 to 44. The 31 men and 8 women are believed to have paid human traffickers to bring them to England. Cyberbullying to social networking each day, Safer Internet Day, aims to raise awareness of emerging online issues. BCN's Loris Alexander has more on what parents should be aware of as organizations gear up to make the internet a safer place.
Sexual predators have found an easy access point into the lives of young people. They meet them online through video games and apps, making virtual connections right in their victims' homes.
Websites, there's games, there's things that can have heavy influences, and we have other people that have other motives on how they want to connect with kids.
Many of the interactions lead to crimes of sextortion, in which children are coerced into sending explicit images of themselves.
We do hear some things about the concerns about some sexting and around people wanting to share images or the pressure to share sexualized images, and it being very commonplace for especially young girls to be asked to share intimate photos of themselves.
Amanda Todd was one of those young girls. A Dutch man had sexually extorted the BC teenager before he convinced the then 12-year-old Todd to flash herself.
Children and youth, we have to look that there's a lot of vulnerabilities that come with that, because we often question who we are as we're growing up. We want to be liked. We want to have friends. And even as adults, we want to have friends. We want to be liked. That's why dating sites do so well.
So how can parents best navigate gaming and other online activity that expose children and teens to sexual predators?
The best app you can ever have is yourself, and that face-to-face interaction with your kids.
Christine Cassie wants to empower parents to know that they can control access and should always exert that control.
Our role as parents is to be responsible. We've chosen to have these little darlings. We need to deal with them. And we need to help them explore the world in some different ways that's really healthy for them. And really, empathy is one of the biggest things we can teach. We read face-to-face with them so they can learn those looks on our face and learn the intonation of when we're angry, when we're happy, when we're sad, when we're happy, all those things. This is important skills for us to teach our kids.
For Bridge City News, I'm Loris Alexander.
A 33-year-old Lethbridge man is being charged with sexual assault following an incident last Saturday. Police say the man met an 18-year-old woman at a bar on 1st Avenue South. When she became sick, he offered to drive her and a friend home. After dropping the young woman off, he returned a short time later, broke into the home, and sexually assaulted her. The victim was taken to Chinook Hospital and treated for her injuries. Following an investigation, the man was identified and arrested. Sohail Bindra of Lethbridge is charged with housebreaking and 2 counts of sexual assault. He's scheduled to make his first court appearance on March 2nd. An appeal is being heard in Calgary from the triple murderer Derek Soretsky. Soretsky received 3 life sentences in 2017 for the deaths of Terry Blanchette, Terry's 2-year-old daughter Haley Dunbar Blanchette, and Hannah Makata. All 3 were murdered in the Crow's Nest Pass in 2015. Soretsky's lawyer says his client should be acquitted in the death of Makata. Balfour Durr says he took issue with the confession his client gave to police while in custody. He says Soretsky should have been given the right to speak with a lawyer and should never have given the confession in a remand center 6 months afterwards. Durr argued if his client was given the option to call a lawyer, he would have done so and been advised not to speak with police. Woods Homes is a nonprofit group which has been helping children in distress since 1917. Shauna Cohen is the group's program manager here in Lethbridge. She stopped by our studio recently, and I asked her what some of the most difficult situations they deal with when it comes to kids.
Difficult situations are when we have young people who come to us with not one stable adult in their life, and when we have to assist them in finding family natural supports, but that is a service that we do provide, is family finding. Also young people who have experienced severe trauma. That is very difficult to hear and see young people going through those things.
Catch the full interview with Shauna Cohen from Woods Homes explaining the unique ways they help kids in crisis, coming up in the second half of our show. The province today announced that it is tabling the budget on February 27th. The new budget will provide an update on the government's fiscal and capital plans. Finance Minister Travis Taves says the government consulted more than 30,000 Albertans through telephone town halls and an online survey. He says more than 26,000 people provided feedback as to where our tax dollars should go. The February 27th date will allow for the debate at the legislature and a plan to pass the budget before the end of the fiscal year. Victoria Park High School will be hosting its own town hall meeting tonight. Board Chair of the Lethbridge School Division, Clark Bosch, says everyone is invited out to voice their concerns on public school spending. Bosch says he will begin the event with a greeting.
And then we're going to turn it over to Mark DeBoer, and Mark DeBoer is in our finance department, and Mark will explain how the budget is allocated in Lethbridge School Division, and we'll have a couple of visuals on every table for every person, I believe, for them to look at as Mark's explaining, and then we have people at each table facilitating discussions that have definitions of all the different parts if there is some a misunderstanding or lack of understanding in what things mean. So hopefully the people that come to Town Hall will not only be able to provide input, but will also leave us learning a great deal about how finances are allocated.
Bosch anticipates he expects around 180 people to attend the town hall, which begins at 6:30 tonight. For more information about the event, visit Lethbridge School Division's website. The need for a new Indigenous Cultural Centre was discussed at City Council last night. Perry Stein, who is the city's Indigenous Relations Advisor in Lethbridge, says the goal of the centre is to be a safe place for people to come together and to take part in Indigenous culture.
We felt it was important on this project to actually design engagement with the community. This is a community initiative coming out of work that's been done by the urban Indigenous community. So it was important for us to actually spend some time with the community, urban indigenous organizations, local businesses, arts and culture sectors, but also our partners in the region, Blackfoot Confederacy nations, understand their needs and opportunities for an agricultural center.
Stein says we should know more about funding for the center by the spring of next year. Police in Vancouver said 33 people were arrested yesterday as officers enforced an injunction preventing blockades at entrances to the Port of Vancouver and the Delta Port Container Terminal. Many are showing their solidarity and support of the Wet'suwet'en Nation chiefs who oppose a natural gas pipeline crossing their traditional territories in northwest BC. A similar protest also took place by Indigenous youth on the steps of the legislature in Victoria.
We are here as long as this injustice continues. Regardless of gross displays of colonial pageantry, we will be here. And our hearts are heavy because the paramilitarized forces of the RCMP have recently invaded the Unistoten camp, and they have arrested all of the Unistoten matriarchs who were in song and prayer on those lands. So now it is up to us, the people, to stand up on their behalf, to shut this country down and to make it clear that, in this day and age, it is immoral, it is unjust, and it is inhuman for Canada to continue to criminalize and vilify Indigenous law and to achieve consent by gunpoint when, especially after the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples was adopted into this very same legislature.
Former Federal Health Minister Jane Philpott has a brand new job. Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario hired Philpott as the Dean of its Faculty of Health Sciences. She will also become director of its medical school starting in July. The longtime family doctor made headlines last year when she resigned from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's cabinet over the SNC-Lavalin affair. She then lost her seat when she ran as an independent during the last federal election. People with epilepsy are contributing in surprising ways in the fight to battle the disease. Some patients have donated brain tissue during surgery to allow scientists to study brain cells while they're still alive. A warning now, some of the images you're about to see are graphic.
Straight from the operating room, part of an organ is sent on its way to an eager recipient. But this is not a typical organ donation. The recipient is a team of scientists who go to work analyzing this piece of brain tissue about the size of a lima bean. The research could help pave the way for new treatments for neurological disorders like epilepsy or Alzheimer's.
We can't do any of this work if we don't have a steady supply of research specimens coming from the local hospital.
For the past 5 years, Allen Institute researchers have been collecting samples to build an online atlas of brain cells. But in order to succeed, they need living tissue.
After a person passes away, you wouldn't be able to measure dynamic properties of cells, for example, the electrical activity.
Most of the samples come from epilepsy patients, like Jeanette Hoffman, who volunteered to donate a small piece of their brains while undergoing surgery to treat seizures.
Because of the nature of those surgeries, we're often taking out a small part of normal brain that's next to or over the parts of the brain that are causing seizures. So in order to do these surgeries, that part of the brain is going to be removed regardless, and that offers us the chance to use that brain to advance science.
Hoffman hopes the surgery will eliminate her seizures and help others.
The whole idea of helping someone live a better life, I never thought that I could be that effective. I'm not a doctor or a scientist. So it gives me honor to know that I may help someone's daughter or son or relative to have a better life.
A small contribution to science that could have a lasting impact. Malcolm Ritter, Associated Press.
2 police officers were wounded and a gunman was killed yesterday when a gunfight broke out at a Walmart in eastern Arkansas.
Officers engaged the suspect. The suspect is deceased. 2 of our officers have been injured, but it's due to their heroism and quick response that no civilians were injured.
In the early morning hours, around 10:24 a.m., our department did receive a phone call from Walmart stating that they had an individual inside making threats, kind of talking out of his head. Officer responded to that call, approached the suspect, and from there we had incident where we had 2 of our officers injured and the suspect killed.
The U.S. Coast Guard says nearly 20,000 pounds of cocaine were seized in the eastern Pacific Ocean and was brought to San Diego. The cocaine was seized in 8 operations over the past 2 months.
So today, we're surrounded behind me here with 20,000 pounds of uncut cocaine worth almost $350 million. It's a result of 8 different high seas interdictions in the eastern Pacific Ocean carried out by 4 different Coast Guard cutters from November to January. Along with the contraband, 26 suspected smugglers were detained and brought forward for prosecution. And for the first time on this patrol, we were underway with a small unmanned aerial system, a drone, a tremendous force multiplier. It proved that as advertised.
While we were all enjoying family and friends during the holiday season, this crew is underway in the deep eastern Pacific, pushing our U.S. borders out thousands of miles, establishing our sovereignty and protecting our national security. We are grateful for that.
It was on this day that South Africa frees Nelson Mandela, Ayatollah Khomeini's followers seized power in Iran, and inventor Thomas Edison is born. This is Today in History for February the 11th.
February 11th, 1990. Nelson Mandela is freed in South Africa after the black activist spent 27 years in captivity under the country's apartheid rule.
I stand here before you not as a prophet, but as a humble servant of you, the people.
4 years later, Mandela is elected South Africa's president in its first multiracial elections after apartheid is abolished. 1945. During the final months of World War II, the top Allied leaders signed the Yalta Accords in Ukraine, then part of the Soviet Union. The Accords play a part in the split between Washington and Moscow as the two superpowers later enter the Cold War. 1979. In Iran, followers of the Ayatollah Khomeini seize power, establishing an Islamic fundamentalist regime. Months later, dozens of Americans at the U.S. Embassy in Iran's capital, Tehran, are taken hostage and held captive for 444 days. And 1847. Inventor Thomas Edison is born in Milan, Ohio. Among his many inventions, the electric light bulb, the phonograph, and the motion picture camera. Today in History, February 11th. Carlotta Bradley, The Associated Press.
The judging is underway for the 144th annual Westminster Kennel Club Dog Show. 2,500 dogs from all over the world are in New York for the big competition.
We're excited to have 2,500 of the top show dogs coming this year. We have dogs representing all 49 of the 50 states, and we have dogs from 19 other countries. The best part is you never know who's going to win. Just because you're ranked one of the top dogs in the country coming into the show doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to advance. Obviously, if you have a quality dog, it's a good chance you're going to do well. But the best part about Westminster is you're never going to know who's going to win, and that's the fun part.
I always love it when they can shake a paw. The trees were shaking again today. We have lots of wind and cloud cover. There are also some flurries in the forecast. A complete look at the weather picture is coming up. Cloudy and windy again today with some light flurries in some areas. Jeanette Rocher is here now with a complete look at the forecast. Jeanette, there's a good chance of more of the white stuff again tonight.
Yeah, we are expecting a chance of flurries overnight. We could actually see 2 to 4 centimeters falling by tomorrow. -9 is the overnight low, but it's going to feel like -17 with that wind chill gusting up to 50 kilometers per hour. And tomorrow, chance of snow as well, and a high of -5. Looking ahead to the 5-day forecast, we're going to be seeing lots of plus temperatures as we get into Thursday. Lots of sunshine, 6 degrees is the high, 3 degrees the high on Friday. Could see a chance of flurries that day as well. Saturday, lots of sunshine is expected with a high of 5, and then highs of 1 and 2 degrees on Sunday and Monday with some scattered clouds. Now, the almanac averages for this time of year, highs and lows, high being 1 degree and low being -11. We're definitely keeping in that range and above. 16 degrees was the high temperature on this day. That was in 2005. And the chilliest day on record for today was -27. That was back in 19 1985. The sun rose at 7:49 a.m. and it set this evening at 5:42 p.m. And I'm sure you're noticing a difference as you are driving home after work. The days are getting longer and longer. Over to the west coast, looking ahead to tomorrow, we're going to see some showers in Victoria, high of 8 degrees. Showers expected also in Vancouver, high of 7 degrees. A mix of sun and cloud with flurries across Alberta tomorrow, high of -8 in Edmonton and -5 in Calgary. Now over on the prairies, we're going to be seeing that dome of cold air underneath some really clear skies, lots of sunshine. -18 though is the high for Saskatoon and Regina, and -23 for Winnipeg. Quite a change from what they had today with that temperature drop. Toronto's high tomorrow, 2 degrees, 1 degree expected in Ottawa, and 0 for Montreal. We have scattered clouds in most of the region, lots of sunshine though over in Ottawa. Looking further east over to Atlantic Canada, Fredericton's high tomorrow, 1 degrees. 2 degrees is expected in Halifax with a chance of snow. They should see some flurries as well in Charlottetown with a high of -1. 0 is the high expected tomorrow in St. John's, but they are under a snowfall warning. They could see 15 centimeters up starting tonight and into tomorrow. There you go. That's your forecast.
Sony and Amazon both pulled out of a major European technology show over fears of the coronavirus. Sony says it is scrapping its appearance at the Mobile World Congress in Spain later this month. Instead, the company will launch its latest devices through its YouTube channel on February 24th, which is the first day of the show. Amazon, Ericsson, and LG have also pulled out of the show. The show organizers say they're moving ahead as planned with the event, but have outlined safety measures. Shares in athletic gear company Under Armour plunged 16% after it announced it will be taking a big financial hit from the new coronavirus outbreak in China. The company also revealed it may need to restructure this year at a cost of hundreds of millions of dollars. Under Armour says the virus will drag down its first quarter sales by up to $60 million. Earlier today, it reported a fourth quarter loss of $15.3 million. Tire company Goodyear also had a loss this past quarter, but theirs was $392 million. The results did not meet Wall Street's expectations. The tire maker posted revenue of $3.71 billion, which also did not meet forecasts. Goodyear shares have fallen 29% over the past 12 months. Saskatchewan's only active gold mine produced a record amount of gold last year. Officials with the province say the CB Gold operation produced more than 112,000 ounces. That is a 17% increase from 2018. It also marks the fourth consecutive year the CB operation has set a new record for gold production in the province. The gold mine is located around 125 kilometers northeast of La Ronge. You may have noticed that your car insurance rates have gone up. Many insurance companies say they're losing money. Mark Fienne is with the Fair Alberta Injury Regulators. He says, don't believe everything you hear when it comes to insurance companies saying they're in the red.
So far this year, just by way of example, one insurance company, AMA, everybody knows who AMA is, they have made in the first half of this year profit before taxes of over $32 million. So how are they losing money? We have said to the insurance industry, if you're saying you're losing money, open your books. Let us have a look at your books. And they have just ignored us.
Catch the full interview with Mark Fienne from FAIR discussing the insurance industry and where you stand coming up after business news. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was up 37 points on the day to 17,777. The Dow was down 48 points to 29,276. The S&P 500 was up 6 points to 3357. The Nasdaq was up 11 points to 9638. Oil was up 38 cents on the day to 49.65 per barrel. Natural gas was up 2 cents to $1.79. Gold was up 5 cents to 15.6794 an ounce, and silver was up 10 cents to 17.74 an ounce. Wheat is at $228 per metric ton. Barley's at $229. Canola's at $4.49, and corn is at $269 per metric ton. Live cattle were down $1.23 to $120.30. Feeder cattle were down $1.03 to $136.90. Lean hogs were down 8 cents to $56.33. The Canadian dollar was unchanged on the day at 75.26 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, officials say no one aboard a second Canadian plane carrying evacuees from Wuhan, China showed any symptoms of the coronavirus when it landed at CFB Trenton today. Foreign Affairs Minister Francois-Philippe Champagne says the plane was carrying 130 Canadians and 58 accompanying family members. They're all in quarantine on the base along with the other 213 Canadians and family members who arrived last week. There's an organization which helps kids with mental health issues, including addictions. Hear more during my interview with Shauna Cohen from Woods Homes. That interview is coming up shortly. But first, here's a look at what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News Community Calendar. The Southern Alberta Antique and Classic Automobile Club is hosting its annual Early Bird Swap Meet Saturday, February 15th from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. at LETHBRIDGE Exhibition Park, filling all 4 pavilions. Discover interesting antiques, collectibles, memorabilia, and other treasures. Admission is $5 and those under 16 can enter for free. For more information, call 403-381-6971. Celebrate Family Day at the Galt Museum and Archives for their second annual free pancake brunch. Taking place on February 17th, beginning at 10 a.m., come and enjoy delicious pancakes, music, crafts, and games. Admission is free. For more information, visit galtmuseum.com/events. The Kinsmen Club of Lethbridge invites you to their 6th annual Mardi Gras Charity Gala on Saturday, March 14th at the Sandman Signature Lethbridge Lodge. The evening begins at 5 p.m., where you can enjoy the ambiance of the French Quarter, which will also feature a 5-course Cajun meal, games and entertainment, a silent auction, dance, and much more. Early bird tickets are $72 and can be purchased at eventbrite.ca. Proceeds to go towards the Ready, Set, Go Back to School Fair. For details, visit the Kinsmen Club of Lethbridge's Facebook page. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
The world can be a very difficult place. Many communities in Canada are dealing with a drug crisis and a family breakdown. Mental health issues are not uncommon with people of all ages, including our young people. So where do they turn for help? Where do we turn for help? Joining me now in studio is Shauna Cohen, Program Manager of Lethbridge Woods Homes. Welcome to BCN.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate that.
So Shauna, first of all, your organization, Woods Homes, has been around since 1914, a long time. Why don't you share what your group is all about?
So Woods Homes is a nationally recognized children's mental health center. We've been around for over 105 years, and we have more than 40 programs agency-wide, Lethbridge, Calgary, Fort McMurray, Strathmore, Canmore. And our goal really is to promote and assist the well-being of young people and their families by creating and providing children or mental health programming that's suitable for their needs.
Now, when you say young people, is it ages what, 12 or 13 up to 18?
You know, we provide services up for young people up to age 24 and also to families. So it's really not a situation where we would discriminate against age. So,
how many youth do you have stay with you and how long do they actually stay?
We have up to about 50 to 75 young people per year. It varies from week to week, and so length of stay can be typically up to 14 days, but sometimes problems, big or small, take longer than that amount of time. So really, they stay with us for as long as it takes to help to resolve their issues.
Shauna, let's talk about some of those problems, specifically problems the teenagers may have with their parents, that family dynamic. How do you help bridge the gap and help them over a lot of those issues?
So we've found over the years that the number one reason for our referrals is family conflict due to a number of reasons. It could be mental health, it could be poverty, it could be substance abuse, all types of things. So we've actually added a person who is connected to our shelter services, and she provides family support services for young people, but also their families. So we work with young people and their families together, but also on an individual basis to try and resolve the conflict, work with them to reintegrate them back into the home, and hopefully prevent long-term homelessness for the young person.
Shauna, I've interviewed many addicts over the years, and many of the drug users say the reason why they use drugs is to hide the pain and the suffering that they've gone through in the past. So how do you help young people who may be battling that drug addiction when they come to Woods Homes?
I think like a big part of the key is to first listen and seek to understand where they're coming from, to look at the big picture, look at their history, and then determine how best we can help them.
As a parent as well, if my child wants to leave home and go to Woods Homes for whatever amount of stay, a week or 2 weeks, whatever the case is, am I still able to touch base with my child while they're there?
Absolutely. That is actually something that we strongly encourage, is parental involvement throughout the process. Young people and their families may need a time where they need a break, but we still encourage them to make the young person feel as though they're part of the family.
Is there help as well available for parents?
There is, yeah. We have trained staff that work in the shelter, but we also have a family support counselor who works on parenting strategies, helps with conflict resolution, helps to do a number of things actively with the parents.
Has there ever been a point in time as well where maybe the parents were abusive and the child says, I don't want to see my mother or father at this point in time?
Yeah, I mean, we have cases that come from all walks of life, families that comes from all walks of life with all different situations, problems, big and small. So we just really seek to understand and to figure out what the best route is to take with them. So sometimes it's involving children's services, sometimes it's involving outside resources, such as like family mediation services, counseling, different things like that. We don't take on everything within our organization, but we definitely just assess the need for sure.
Now, your motto is, we never say no, we never give up, we never turn anyone away. What are some of the most difficult situations you've had to deal with to date?
The most difficult situations, I think, are the young people that have really no single adult that is a caregiver, right? Young people who have absolutely no one in their lives. They don't have family, they don't have natural supports. So trying to build those supports for young people has often been a struggle.
Now, you guys actually have a motto, we never say no, never give up, never turn anyone away. What are some of the most difficult situations you deal with at Woods Homes?
Difficult situations are when we have young people who come to us with not one stable adult in their life, and when we have to assist them in finding family natural supports, but that is a service that we do provide, is family finding. Also young people who have experienced severe trauma. That is very difficult to hear and see young people going through those things.
If you don't have family members, can you reach out to maybe that young person's best friend and talk to them as well?
You know, sometimes family isn't just family related by blood. Family is whoever the individual thinks is family. So what we would do is we would help a young person to build up a support network, whoever they feel is necessary.
Now, you have some success stories as well you can share about a teenager who actually kicked the drug habit and is leading more of a normal life. Tell me more about that.
We have young people who definitely have successes. We have to look at successes sometimes by measuring the small things. But I mean, most recently, we've had a young person who actually checked themselves into a treatment program.
Wow.
Because they seen the need for the services and the support, and they were getting to the point where they were hitting rock bottom. So they were aware of the resources and kind of did that on their own. I think there's going to be bumps and challenges, but at least, you know, they were motivated to do that on their own.
Tell me about some of the resources that are available for young people, especially if they're suffering through a lot of emotional abuse or even maybe online bullying, let's say.
So in the community, there are a number of services that work collaboratively to support young people and families, and we do refer out to a lot of the services in the community. So there's private counseling, there's family counseling, there's children's services, there's all kinds of employment services, but we do offer many of those things in-house as well. So it just depends on how significant the need is.
Shauna, do you see a lot of mental health challenges, especially for young people in Lethbridge?
We do, yeah. There's definitely significant issues. I don't know that they've increased, but we definitely do see those at the root of problems a lot of the times, whether it be the young people or their families.
What are some of the issues that you're seeing when it comes to mental health? Maybe isolation, loneliness?
We see lots of depression and anxiety.
Okay.
Definitely, we see a lot of that with young people. A lot of young people come in with a diagnosis of ADHD, FASD. Sometimes there's suspected mental health issues, but we don't actually have a diagnosis, but we do the work to get the young people connected to those services that can provide a diagnosis or medical supports.
Is a lot of this pressures that's being put on the young people from maybe family members?
Could be.
Right?
It could be. It just really depends.
I want you to be a doctor. I want you to be a lawyer. I want you to be an astronaut.
I mean, like I said, the young people come from all walks of life, the young people and their families. Mental health doesn't discriminate. It really can affect anyone. So it's just really a matter of kind of figuring out what the situation is and getting them the medical help or the treatment that they need.
Tell me about some of the programs that you offer when it comes to helping young people with their mental health issues. Are there games as well to get them to open up and relax and the walls come down?
You know, we have trained youth and family counselors that work within our programs. So they'd either come with post-secondary diploma or a degree. So they have the skills, and we provide in-house training to be able to work with young people. And what we call life space counseling. So it's more informal than a therapeutic sit down at an organization outside of Woods Homes, but we really focus on relational-based practice and that relationship building with young people. So you'd be surprised what you can talk to a young person about when you're on a drive or when you're coloring a coloring page or just doing an informal activity.
You know, it's funny because there are even adult coloring books today, right, for people suffering through anxiety and stress.
Yeah.
But how often do the young people actually come to you and say, you know what, I do have some mental health issues? Because a lot of people, they swallow their pride and say, I'm good, I'm fine, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like 50-50, right? So we have young people who know they need the help and they know they don't feel right and they don't feel normal. So we get them connected with medical help right away, whether that be doctors, psychiatrists, what have you, or even just like mental health services. But then there are resistant youth, right? Like youth are struggling on a good day. Just normal teenagers are struggling to figure out who they are, where they fit in, and how they belong. And then put a mental health issue on top of that, that sometimes leads to substance use and conflict. So sometimes it takes a longer time to be able to get them the services they so need.
Lethbridge, Sean, is now over 100,000 people, and with a bigger city comes bigger city problems like human trafficking. Are you seeing a rise of that as well, and maybe helping kids get out of the sex slave trade?
You know, we haven't had specific situations where we knew for sure that someone was being trafficked or exploited. However, we do have suspicions sometimes, and so if we do have a suspicion that those kinds of things are occurring, we will refer to appropriate services for more secure treatments and services immediately.
Is there something from your experience that can really help youth leave the sex trade industry?
It hasn't been an issue that's been openly on the forefront with our young people. It's more been substance abuse, family conflict, and mental health issues, and then sometimes issues with like the legal areas.
Because I'm wondering too at the same time if sometimes people get into the sex trade industry to fuel their drug habits. They'll pay for that, right?
I mean, definitely young people are being exploited. When they're under 18, we call that young people being exploited.
Absolutely.
So I think that sometimes they get involved with those kinds of situations and they don't actually even realize they're being exploited, right? So it's like, I'll give you drugs and then you have to do this. So as soon as we catch on to any situations like that, we will tap into the proper services and get them help and get them removed from that situation.
Does Woods Homes also have any programs to help kids with their job skills to find employment?
We actually have a worker right now who does, she's called the employment locator. And so what she does is she works one-to-one with young people to actively engage them in the workforce, but she also engages employers to try and make partnerships and to try and explain the types of young people that we work with so that they have a different level of understanding of the needs of the individuals that we serve.
How do you help a lot of the young people as well improve their education?
Well, a big focus for us is school reintegration. So we keep really closely connected with the schools. We meet monthly to talk about young people who potentially could be hotspots, referrals that come our way. But we also actively engage with school counselors, parents. We try and make sure that if a young person isn't attending school, that we somehow get them some sort of job program or meaningful daily activity.
How about if a young person is involved in an abusive relationship at home, but they were homeschooled? How would you handle a situation like that?
That's a different situation. I mean,
Right.
obviously, I think that what we would do is bring them into our shelter services to first and foremost meet their basic needs, start with the safe place to stay. We would assess the situation, and then I think what we would do is probably figure out how to refer out for help. If it's an abusive situation and they're under the age of 18, we would often involve children's services just for protection of the child.
What message do you want to give parents and caregivers who are raising teenagers or preteens of how we can really help them so they don't end up at Woods Homes? I mean, Woods Homes is wonderful. It's a nonprofit group. You're helping out in an amazing way in our community, which is a blessing. But at the same time, you know, it's too bad. It's too bad that we have, you know, a food bank. But at the same time, it's a blessing that it's there for those in need, right?
Yeah.
So what message do you want to convey to those parents or caregivers?
I think that I would really just emphasize listening and understanding. Really know who your kids are hanging out with, what their needs are, where they might be struggling, and try and do it with a non-judgmental lens. Just be open to hearing about their mistakes and allowing them to move forward and learn from those mistakes.
So being a sounding board is key, right? Really listening?
I really think so, yeah.
Not just hearing, but listening what they're saying, right?
Yeah, and allowing them to make mistakes, right? And being accepting of that and helping them and teaching them how to move forward from those mistakes.
Shauna Cohen, Program Manager of Lethbridge Woods Homes. Thanks a lot for joining me in studio today.
Thanks so much.
By now, you've probably noticed the vehicle insurance premiums have gone up in Alberta. Is it because insurance companies are not able to make a profit because of higher claims being made? Or is it simply a push to increase their profit margins? Joining me now to talk about it is Mark Fian, spokesperson for Fair Alberta Injury Regulations, and former president of the Alberta Civil Trial Lawyers Association. Mark, welcome to Bridge City News.
Well, thanks very much for having me.
Mark, what is Fair Alberta all about, and what are you trying to accomplish here?
So FAIR is an acronym, FAIR. We have a website. I want to get that out right away so I don't forget. fairab.ca. So Fair Alberta Injury Regulations. And what it is, and we were talking a little bit before the camera came on, about some of the things that insurance companies are doing to people in Alberta, allegedly because they say they are losing money. And the group that I am with and I'm a spokesperson for is looking at this, and we represent a pretty significant cross-section of various components of the Alberta community. We have medical professionals, doctors, chiropractors, physiotherapists. We have in our group legal professionals. We have injury victims. We have consumers. And we are wondering also what is going on. There's quite a bit of history to the whole insurance scheme in Alberta. And there's a new government in place, and that is who our message really is for.
Yeah, the Alberta government scrapped a 5% insurance rate cap that was put in place by the NDP. Why was that?
So if you go back 15 years to 2003, 2002, the insurance industry deliberately, now, and we know this, and we can prove this, they deliberately rate shocked Alberta. They were handing 17, 18-year-old kids bills to drive a car for a year of $7,000, $8,000, $9,000. So kids, of course, can't afford that. They would go to their parents. They would go, "What's going on?" And they would call up their MLA, and the MLAs were, "Oh my God, we got to do something." So Ralph Klein and his group at that time, they stepped in. They said, "We're going to regulate this. We're going to limit how much insurance companies can charge for liability, and we're going to put a cap on minor injuries." And so for the last 15 years in Alberta, there has been this scheme in place. It took a few years for things to sort out, but over about the last 10 years now, we think the system is pretty stable. And just in the last year, since the new government came in, the insurance industry is back to rate shocking. I think that they're looking at what worked 15 years ago. They want to make some more money. They want to get the government to limit even further what they have to pay for. They want to include chronic pain in the definition of minor injury. And I have seen chronic pain cases last an entire lifetime. Chronic pain injuries can plague somebody for their entire life. That is not a minor injury. But the insurance industry and even Premier Kenney is talking about how lawyers, and I'm one of those, this is my business, this is what I do, have found loopholes in the legislation to get around the cap. But chronic pain, right from the very beginning, the Court of Appeal of Alberta said that is a more serious injury than the chronic pain, than the minor injury regulations contemplate. So this is not something that lawyers have gotten around. What they're saying is we want to include a non-capped, a major injury into the minor injury definition.
You know, some say that personal injury awards have been on the rise. That's why we're seeing a lot of these rates increasing. Any stats to actually support that?
I do have some paper here, and that absolutely is not true. There is not a lot of information. This is one of the big issues that we're talking about. A lot of the information, all of the information that we have available to us as the general public, and that's where we are. We go to the federal regulations, we go to the provincial regulations. This one here says that so far this year, just by way of example, one insurance company, AMA, everybody knows who AMA is, they have made in the first half of this year profit before taxes of over $32 million.
Wow.
So, right. So how are they losing money? We have said to the insurance industry, If you're saying you're losing money, open your books. Let us have a look at your books. And they have just ignored us. They have not opened the books. They're handing this line to the government. Now, you don't get any smarter because you get elected to office. You come into it the person you are, and you now have a duty as a representative of the people to look into these issues, to become informed, and to make a responsible decision. We have gone to the government. The insurance companies are going to the government, and we're very concerned that the government is not paying attention to their responsibilities. They're listening to the insurance companies saying, we're losing money. And we want to make sure that they also hear the other side of the coin, that we say they are making lots of money and that we don't want injury claims to be minimized further.
So, Mark, what's the current cap on soft tissue injuries right now?
I think right now it's about $5,300.
Apparently, some people are finding ways to get around that somehow. Can you explain?
Well, what the insurance industry means by that when they say yes, and they've been saying that, what they say is, well, we think that there should be non-capped claims in that. So if you get more for a non-capped claim, then you're somehow circumventing the minor injury regulations. Well, if you have a brain injury and you get more money than $5,000, you didn't get around the cap. You were compensated for a non-minor injury.
So how do we compare to other provinces?
In terms of premiums that we pay, we are just a little bit less than average. Now, I don't know with these new statistics what's going to happen. The cost of the system to the province is we're right about in the middle. Is about we're neither higher nor lower. British Columbia is outrageous. I think that on average, a person driving a car here pays around $1,200 or $1,300, add $1,000 if you live in BC.
Wait a minute, that's the government controlled like Saskatchewan. So maybe public auto insurance isn't the best way to go?
Well, it depends on what you want. Does Alberta want to live in a system where you have no rights to sue? You're basically, you get an injury, you look it up on a meat chart, and that's the amount of money you get. That's not very applicable for everybody. It might fit the sort of the general central category, but it doesn't fit. And you know, that's not the issue these days, whether we should have a no fault or government insurance. What FAIR is about is trying to make sure that our government representatives, our government officials, including the Premier and the Minister of Finance and Treasury, make a responsible decision about the claims that are being made by the insurance industry, and making sure that they check into the facts. Okay, so there's a couple things that are, I'm not sure if you're getting this down there, but there are a couple of spokespersons for the Insurance Bureau of Canada, IBC, and they've been saying that for every dollar of premium, for every premium dollar collected, they're paying out $1.12. If you look at that statement, every premium dollar collected, well, that's not all the money that insurance companies bring in. When they collect premiums, they don't pay it out for 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 years. In the meantime, they invest it, and these are high power investments that we're talking about. You don't just get 3 or 4% when you're an insurance company, right? You can go to the high power preferred investments, and you can get over 10%. So if you're bringing in a 10% more, and you don't include that in that statement that we're losing 12 cents, how is that fair? That's a deceptive thing to say. Now we're looking at that kind of stuff, and we're going, well, we hope the government's not listening to this, because it's clearly at least misinformation, if not out and out deception. And they have been caught. The insurance industry, or I can't remember which insurance company it was, but about a year ago, this particular company went to the Alberta Insurance Rate Board, and they are the ones that receive insurance requests for increases. and they allow it or don't allow it, or say, okay, you can get 2% or 4% or whatever. And that's the cap that was in place, and that was lifted by the UCP about 2 months ago.
Mark, how common is insurance fraud today? In particular, people who may fake or exaggerate an injury to receive big compensation.
Yeah, you know what? There's a lot of issues that we could talk about. I personally have been doing this for almost 40 years, and I can count on one hand the number of true, and I mean less than 5 times in 40 years, the number of true times that I think there was a fraud.
Wow.
It's extremely remote. Somebody else with other information might say something different. I think that is just something that they're using to, oh, well, we got to stop paying these fraudsters. Somebody gets into a car accident and says they got a sore neck. You can call them a fraud. Does that make them a fraud? We have a court system to verify whether people are actually injured. We have doctors, we have insurance lawyers and investigators and adjusters. They are looking very carefully. They're very alive to this issue. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, if I can just go back to that claim about a year ago where they were asking for an increase in the premium. So they have to go to the AIRB, Alberta Insurance Rate Board, and they have to prove that they need more money. So they bring this information. The government's own auditor looked at the data that insurance company provided and said, and this is a public statement, that is not reliable information. And what do you mean? Said, well, they're saying that on average they're paying out too much money per claim, but they didn't include all the claims. They only took the high-end claims. They didn't include the low-end claims, so that skews the average. It skews the numbers, and it was largely in response to that incident that happened about a year ago that the NDP decided they didn't think they could believe the insurance industry. They hired an actuary out of Ontario, and he, for about almost a year now, has been working on a report which is due out in the next month, and he is going to tell us whether the insurance industry is a profitable business or not. And I think that's what's going on right now. They're trying to get ahead of that before the government finds out what the truth is.
Mark, I've noticed with my own insurance company, when it comes to auto insurance, it's gone up about 30% in the last year or so. I've got a clean record, no accidents. One of my coworkers, who's quite a bit younger than I am, hers has gone up about 120%. What do you think is a fair profit margin for these insurance companies?
Well, that's a really good question. And I don't know. And this is the problem that the provincial government of Alberta got itself into 15 years ago, because they are responsible for telling an industry how much a fair profit is. Well, the industry wants more. They're like the bears in the national park. You give them something, it's not enough ever. They want more, give us more, give us more. So we do not want the industry to collapse and fail, because it's a valuable, important part of Alberta society. We need insurance. So that's the question. But that is the decision that a responsible government has to make. We ought to make sure that they're not raking in more money than they should be, and we don't want them to go broke either. But how are you going to know unless they open their books and show us how much money they're making? And they have refused to do that so far.
It's interesting. I was talking to one of our government officials here, provincial government officials, and that person was talking to our local police force here in Lethbridge, saying that the amount of young people driving without insurance now is through the roof because they simply can't afford it. What they do is they get their PIN card, then they refuse to pay.
Yeah, I've been hearing about that as well. And I've also heard the government, of course, there's always, for the innocent victim, there's a fallback position. There's the Motor Vehicle Accident Claims Fund, which is managed by the province of Alberta, and they will pay up to $200,000 for somebody injured by an uninsured driver. Plus, they can have their own insurance kick in up to whatever their limits are. So for the injured person, that's not a bad thing. But yes, I mean, there's always going to be issues with fraud and people driving without insurance. But again, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about misinformation being given by the insurance industry really as a whole, and shocking people with high rates so that they cause people to go to the government and say, what's going, like you were talking about your friend there, whose insurance went up 120%. I'm sure she's mad about that, and she ought to be. You know, it wouldn't be a surprise to me if she phoned up her MLA and said, well, you got to do something. So if that's all the MLAs are hearing, they're going to think, we got a problem here. Insurance companies are charging too much money. Hopefully, though, they will say, let's just stop for a second and let's look at this. Let's get their books. Let's look and see how much they're making. Let's find out if this is a legitimate thing that's going on or if it's just manufactured crisis.
Yeah, transparency is what it's all about, definitely. Mark Feehan, spokesperson for Fair Alberta Injury Regulations. Thanks for joining me today from Edmonton.
Thank you very much for having me.
On behalf of all of us here at BCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless. Thanks for watching.